I think the brand is built at every single touch point, including in store, including on pack, including on the way that we show up on a Kroger shelf tag. Like there's a way to do that, to just go through the motions and do it, or there's a way to do it in a distinctive way where, yes, you're converting, but you're also giving someone a little piece of who we are.
Welcome to another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Clark, and I have the benefit of chatting with Tom Spaven today. He is the VP of Marketing at Goodwipes. Welcome, Tom. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm very happy to be here talking to you.
Yeah, it's we'll put subtitles for any of those that can't understand the British. No, I'm just kidding.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
throwing shade immediately.
Yeah, right away. I know that humor runs deep. So, a little bit about you. I mean, you've been exposed to a lot of different scenarios, different industries, from beauty to booze, and now butt wipes. Large consumer packaged goods. Startups, understanding, the unique differences between those two worlds is amazing. Global, regional, local exposure. He's a dad, as am I. It says aspiring athlete. It's either aspiring or washed up. I consider myself a washed up athlete, but for you, aspiring athlete. Multiple different languages. Constantly unlearning. Love to learn more about that. And, really big focus for Tom on, making a brand memorable. So when he's working with a brand, what sticks around for people in the hearts and minds as he's going to work and putting messages out there into the market. Tom, a little bit about you, but please tell us more about who Tom is, maybe outside of work. What's your passion areas? What makes you tick?
Well, thank you for the introduction. That was a great start. I think you covered quite a bit, but I think, one thing that I love to do is just to be with people all the time. I think good marketers are curious, and the more experiences you have, I think the better marketer you'll be. And I think that's what makes me tick. So, a bit about me. As you said, I'm a dad. That's kind of something that happened 3 years ago, right at the start of COVID. And not that defines us, but it certainly upends life as we know it, and has been a big, shift in priorities and focus and perspective, I would say. But I love, as I mentioned, an aspiring athlete, certainly not washed up. Washed up would imply that I was at some point an athlete of some, but no, I just love being active. I love team sports. I think everything that I've learned playing in teams directly informs, I think, how I behave and how I build teams and culture in the workplace, which, I'm sure we'll touch on. Soccer. I've been in the US long enough to now call it soccer. I've given up. Right. But that's
like the reverse. It's like the reverse Ted Lasso.
Right, which I still haven't seen, but people are astonished.
Oh man,
yeah, that's definitely on the watch list. But yeah, soccer, tennis, sport. Being active gets me going. Sometimes slows me down.
Yeah.
Just family and travel. I've been lucky enough to grow up actually across the world. So I was born in London, but I was raised in different countries and cultures, which I think was great because I got to learn different languages. I got to experience all kinds of all corners of the world, which definitely helped that curiosity and that lifelong kind of yearning for experience and adventure. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
That exposure to multiple different cultures, how much does that play a role in how you attack your mandate or build your teams or build marketing direction? How does that influence it?
Yeah, I think subconsciously it always does, because you perhaps have more of an open mind as to what could benefit a team. Like really having all kinds of people and a real mix of people, I think, is just good for community and good for collaboration in general. There is a natural tendency for people to hire people just like themselves, and I've been guilty of that. I have been guilty of that, but that's not really the best thing to do. I think there's enough great narrative out there now about how you should really hire people are a bit unlike you. I think share values, and then those values should be aligned to, you know, the company that you're working for, but hire people who complement you and challenge you in the right way. And I think, you know, you're gonna have a better team, right? You can't have 11 or 15 identical players on a team. That doesn't work in any capacity. So I don't know. I think, you know, I'm not claiming to be the most worldly person, but I think that I have an ability to talk to anybody and kind of engage with anyone and kind of understand where they're coming from, and that's probably helped with hiring and building. I think some pretty cool complementary groups of people.
That's great.
Do amazing things. So that it plays a role.
That's great. A little bit about your journey, Tom. I mean, from, you know, Bacardi to Volley to butt wipes to Goodwipes.
Synonymous with, I would say.
Apologies.
It's working.
Yeah.
The journey. I mean, did you have a specific question about it, or
just kind of you know, you've gone from, you know, big global brands to, you know, more regionally focused, very nimble, agile, you know, brand offering. Now, what are some of the things you learned along the way through those experiences that made you the marketing leader you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say that, like, going from some of the biggest companies in the world, you know, L'Oreal and Bacardi, I mean, that was combined sort of 13 years of my career. Amazing experience, phenomenally successful companies for a reason. You know, there are great people there, and the legacy brands, you know, have stood the test of time. For me personally, I didn't feel like I would ever fully round off my experience and skills if I didn't go to startups. And you know, I did that. I left Bacardi in 2021 and joined a tequila seltzer company called Volley, who are still doing great. And it was a huge leap of faith. And you know, it's no exaggeration to say that it was completely the opposite. Like same industry, but everything else was different. And there was you know, a lot of kind of fundamental discomfort with doing that, because you know, you don't have the support systems around you. I had to build a team. I had to work, you know, you're working directly with founders who are amazing people, right? I have so much respect for entrepreneurs because, you know, I haven't done it. I've had a lot of ideas in my life, but I haven't launched my own company. It takes a special kind of person to do that.
Takes an insane person to do that.
Maybe a little crazy. I think they're a little crazy, which is, you know, you need that because you're going up against, it's David and Goliath, right? If you're starting a drinks company, I mean, just look at the power of the companies you're up against, and trying to fight for shelf space, distributor share of mind. Very hard, but it was just a phenomenal experience to go there and just relearn everything. Like you know, you're not working with an events agency. You're packing a car, driving pull-up banners up to an event and sampling, but what you're doing is talking to consumers more directly, right? You're back in the mix, right? And I had to do that just to it was a revitalizing, invigorating experience, and challenging, hard, like long hours. Sometimes you feel like you're taking two steps back, but you know, the road to success with a startup feels better because you're having a direct impact. And that, at the end, that's what I wanted, right? And you know, big companies are amazing, but you can't always get things done at the pace or quality that you really want. And you know, people either settle for something, you know, sometimes subpar, and that's fine. Or if you're the kind of person that really strives for, I wouldn't say perfection, but you know, you strive for doing extraordinary things, particularly marketing, you know, there's a temptation to go out and find that somewhere else. So I've been on that journey.
Well, that's a great reminder. Like how interesting is it that you know, we as people and professionals, we thirst more for impact and meaning than we do. I mean, you're gonna get paid no matter where you go, right? But it's about wanting to have meaning and be meaningful and create impact. What drew you to Goodwipes, and why do you think that this is an area or a place, an organization and a team that you wanted to hitch your pony to?
That's funny because pony in England is a slang for something very relevant to this category, but we'll save that for another time. I will.
It's your horse.
Yeah, right. I'll get on to Goodwipes, but one thing you mentioned that I think was interesting is like, I think when you're young, if you're a brand marketer and you're younger, the tendency is to try and work for a brand. This isn't everyone, but you want to work for a cool brand, right?
Right.
At least on the surface. So, you know, I've had the great privilege of working on, I mean, Grey Goose vodka, Bombay Sapphire gin. You know, these are iconic brands that have done it, you know, that are famous. And of course, there's a lot of perks that come with that.
Yeah.
And a lot of challenges. And I think as you get older, and maybe this is becoming a dad, right? You realize that it's not about you anymore. It's not about being cool. And then you start to look for different things, and success becomes defined. You know, you define success in different ways. So, you know, at the time, you know, I was working on these incredible brands, but, you know, I wasn't directly impacting the work enough, right? For me, and as much as I would have liked to, there were some areas I did and some areas where there's more layers of hierarchy and more politics, and you can't, you know, in the end, like, you're like, is this really making me happy? Am I really doing this? And then, so you start to think about holistically what success and happiness looks like. And, you know, for me, obviously it's working for the right person.
Yeah.
Is probably the most important, like the most important thing.
Yeah.
You spend more time talking to your boss than you do your kids.
Right.
So they have to be somebody that you not just like and admire, but get on with, have a great chemistry with, great understanding with. So you know, you start to look for these things, and then, yes, of course, you want to work on a brand that is fun to work on, and you want to, you know, at least make a brand cool, but you don't have to work in a cool category. So I think that what's really interesting about the Goodwipes opportunity is we are a disruptor brand in a very sterile, fairly boring category where no one has done anything particularly remarkable. Now, I will say there is another premium brand, Goodwipes. We love them.
Yeah.
They are doing great things. They're phenomenally successful, but, you know, at the same time, they made it quite easy for us to position ourselves, and you know, there's room for everyone to grow. But if you can come into a category and do remarkable things, that's what it's about, I think, as a marketer. And if you can combine that with a great work-life balance and nice boss, yeah, I think that's what success feels like, rather than having the prestige badge of something famous.
I'm on your page for sure. It's the cool factor is in the impact you can create, the teams you can build, irregardless of you're selling shoes or, you know, professional financial services. Right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, Scrub Daddy,
right,
is a sponge, but what a case for brand marketing, right? And memorability and distinctiveness. I mean, just there's no. I don't think there's any cool or non-cool category anymore. I think it's just about what you do within a space to get attention and build community, and you can do it anywhere. So yeah, it's been a
maybe
fun
it is us getting older or having kids. Why can't we figure that out earlier?
Yeah, right.
Describe disruptive a little bit to me. Why Goodwipes? Why is it the brand to grab in your mind?
Because, I mean, objectively, it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge growth opportunity, and this is being realized now. Like the brand is performing well. We're outpacing the category. We're outpacing even our kind of wildest forecasts. But the reason that I think there are several reasons why I think it's working. One is focus. You know, there's a healthy and an unhealthy way to grow quickly and scale, and our big focus is on growing same store sales with the same products. That's not, you know, it's easy to grow distribution. It's easy to grow with innovation. By innovation, I mean just like line extensions. But we're just building it a healthy way, and it's attracting, you know, investment, and it's easier to manage if there's less complexity. So when I just, you know, looked at it, and as I said, you know, had a great vibe with Charlie Sikiak, the CEO, co-founder, and Sam, they're great guys, but they know what they're doing. The category opportunity is huge. They're building brand the right way. They believe that brand is the long-term variable and creative. Like that's your moat, right? Like innovation, like true innovation is obviously a way to disrupt a market, but the chances are someone's going to copy you pretty soon, right? With more muscle. So how do you stand out? How do you build value? And I really do believe it's with brand, and they have the same philosophy. So it's all in there, right? The mix, and we're targeting, consumers who aren't afraid to bust a taboo or two here or there. And that makes it really, that kind of tension makes it fun to do creative work, because you can lean in, and sometimes we find where the limit is and we pull back, and then sometimes we cross it. But give us a follow at Goodwipes on all social platforms. It's a good laugh, and everyone's having a great time doing it. So, and you can see that.
Yeah, I'll put all the handles in the show notes, and encourage you guys to check it out and see what Tom and his team are working on. What I talk a lot about, and I think a lot about, customer segments. I know we all say we got to build our marketing strategies around the customer segments, but I don't know if enough marketing leaders go deep enough on understanding the psychological, emotional makeup of the different, call it 3-4 different segments you approach. Can you put a little bit of meat on the bone of the different segments you guys approach, and how do they differentiate from each other?
Yeah, and this is where language gets confusing within companies, because people can talk about, like a brand marketer can talk about a target consumer, right? Which some people may interpret as your kind of profile of your ideal consumer. And you get these lengthy descriptions of Sally, who lives in Brooklyn and likes to eat out. We've all seen those, right? And I think over time I've realized it's not particularly helpful to look at it that way. I think what you want is your pyramid of kind of influence, right? So you need to know, coming back to obviously your brand and your target consumer fit, right? You have to have a sense of broadly who you're going after, and a lot of that I think increasingly is psychographic. Like, what is the mentality of these people? The famous chart of comparing Prince Charles with Ozzy Osbourne,
right.
Seen it, right?
Yeah, of course.
Demographically identical. All down to several details, but of course couldn't be more different.
Right.
Demographic targeting is helpful when you start doing mass media, because you literally have to carve out large segments of the market, based on where they are and age ranges. But before that, I think you just have to find out who your super fans are. You have to find a little community of them, and what we've done is build out kind of this portrait of a consumer, which I wouldn't say it was like binary gender wise, but we know there's a very large player in our category targeting men, so we would probably skew female, but it's more about attitudes and beliefs, and you look at verticals like comedy and being active. So what we've done is without spelling it out, we have 3 kind of sub segments that we go after within this kind of description of this fearless, we're basically taboo busting women who are unafraid to feel good, right? So it really opens it up. You could be 75 years old, you could be 21 years old, and if you play into this segment, power to you, and welcome into our brand. Who are we to rule people out because they're over 45? I mean, it's just crazy if you think about it.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly what I'm talking about, is just pushing beyond the classic sort of demographic targeting and some of these lazier or easier ways to allocate your efforts, but center it around this unique tribe of fans, and understand the market you can carve out of something that may not have even existed before you looked at it and defined it that way. I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's fun because you when you hit these communities, because they start talking to each other, and then you start seeing them interact independently of you, and they're the ones carrying your brand forward. And ultimately, word of mouth is of course the most powerful marketing tool, and you have to get to that point.
How do you look at the intersection of so for you guys, very brand marketing focused, building tribes, building communities, but how do you intersect performance marketing with that? how do the two coexist and support each other?
So I don't love the bifurcation of brand and performance.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what it's funny, whenever I hear that term, I ask the question back, and I know that you don't endorse it, right? But the question back is like, do you think that brand marketers don't want it to perform? It's like, no, everybody wants it to perform, right? And it comes down to what the various goals of performance are, right? Yeah. Short-term sales, long-term sales. So, any brand, like you can't do fun brand marketing if you're not going to land the plane. By landing the plane, I mean, are you going to hit your numbers? Like, are we on track, right? So the bottom line is you have to deploy a set of marketing activities that are going to help land the plane. And as long as that's happening, great. Then you have your wiggle room, you have your playground. But for me, the two wheels are always turning, right? Mm-hmm. We never turn off brand marketing. And that's not to say that we're doing above the line, multi-million-dollar TV campaigns. Yeah. We're not doing that right now.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is, I think that brand is built at every single touch point, including in store, including on pack, including on the way that we show up on a Kroger shelf tag. Like, there's a way to do that, to just go through the motions and do it. Or there's a way to do it in a distinctive way where, yes, you're converting, but you're also giving someone a little piece of who we are. So that's right. For me, brand is ever present. It's how our sales people walk into the room. It's the materials that they have. It's what they wear. It's how they talk about the brand. So it's an integrated plan, which involves capturing demand in the market now, and and doing persuasive work to stimulate future demand. And that's right. It. If it's off brand, we're not doing it. And that can be in any touch point. So,
and all of those component points or touch points, as you reference, just because, they're brand forward or brand focused. I mean, there's measurability across the board at every touch point. So it's right. And that's where the integration comes in. That's cool.
Right. It's funny because everything's digital. Like the
right.
old, TV, radio is all digital. So it's not like that, obviously performance marketing is of course closely tied to digital and measurable, but for me, it's all digital, and for me, it's all sales, and it's all marketing.
Exactly. And you can very clearly identify the brands that have adopted the siloed perspective of performance marketing versus brand. It's two things talking about. Anyways, very, very good answer to that. And that's helpful to kind of reiterate the truth, at least in my mind. So I'll
probably get some
you will
hate mail.
Oh, well, whatever.
That's fine. Fine that.
I promised you that I'd ask you this later, but I'm going to ask it now. Like, what do you consider 1 to 2 superpowers that you have either acquired over time, but most importantly, what are the superpowers that you feel you have that you bring to the job today?
Yeah,
as a marketing leader, as a marketer.
Sure. Maybe because I'm British, I don't love talking about how.
I think you're most good humans I know don't like talking. Yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
I think relative superpower, or at least where I would over-index, is probably a way of saying it. There are different types of marketing leader. There's. I think I saw. I'm afraid I can't attribute this to a specific source because I can't remember, but it was very well segmented into 5 types, right? And it's very unusual for VPs and CMOs to over-index on more than 2. But for me, it was so incredibly clear that storytelling and team building are the 2 that I lean on. And that's been true throughout my career. So, when I the first time I managed someone, I was horrible at it. But I knew I wanted to do it, and I knew I wanted to get better at it. And if I could go back, and this was probably 12 years ago, I wish I could do it again, because this poor person who was this guinea pig didn't get the best of me, and it was because I was not patient enough. I guess in some respects I expected her to be exactly like me and to get things and to see things the way I saw, and there was just that lack of like I'm a person with high empathy, but I didn't have the experience to kind of deploy that into management. But the thing that's brought me the most satisfaction in my career is not the performance of the brands, it's not the work, it's the people that I've developed, and along that journey, it's the experiences I've had with those people, and the joy that I get from seeing where they are now. And that really, I mean, ultimately, like, what could be more important than that? You're changing people's lives.
Yeah.
A campaign we ran on Bombay gin, like, really fun, some amazing work, but most consumers aren't thinking about that, 5 years later. Then they're not, right? And that's because people care about other things. But if you can develop a young person and help them find their kind of true north and success, I think that's an amazing thing. So team building, as I said earlier, applying all the principles of a team. I think when it comes to team culture, one thing I always come back to is attack the problem, never the person. Yeah. So I want hungry, competitive people around me, right? Because I'm a very competitive person, but I don't want to compete with people on the same team. I want to compete against those other guys, right?
That's right.
The thing, I think, if you can build trust, we talk about the trust triangle a lot in Goodwipes, and it's, you start with trust at the bottom, right? And that allows you to have the healthy conflict that ultimately you need. Yeah. To get to alignment and get to commitment and get to results. But if you don't have trust, all of it falls down, because you're not ready to have that conflict. And conflict is fine, right? If it's healthy, and it allows you to problem solve and ultimately get better. So yeah, healthy teams work. I wouldn't say work hard, play hard. I feel that's a bit of a dated term. I definitely did that in the early days of my career, and made lifelong friends.
Well, you're working for Bacardi.
Yeah, and L'Oreal, there was some incredible times, but it's not about that. I think it's just about being on the same team and being competitive as a team. Yeah.
So you see your job really as the protection and the facilitation of that triangle, right? Because ultimately you can't hit the results if you're not.
Yeah, you can't
building that safe place. Yeah.
No, that's right. And in conjunction, I think, with the CEO and sales leaders, like, if there's ever a moment of awkwardness, we physically in the room, we stare at the trust triangle, and just someone gets up and is like, right, let's just go back to this. Yeah. It truly works, right? I mean, it's amazing, because you think, all right, like, we're going to have a tough conversation here, but it's all in the right spirit. And it works because you just attack the problem. And that is my job.
I love to see or hear that you're doing that. Like, our team, we adopt the 5 dysfunctions of a team triangle, similar concept, but safety and trust, healthy conflict. It's right. And as you get older, you realize that the results, you don't even worry about hitting the results, because they're never going to happen if you haven't created that space that's conducive to that. So
that's exactly right. Exactly right.
What is Tom? You'll be better at this answer. What's Tom weak at? Where's your biggest gap as a marketer or a marketing leader, where you have to rely on others?
Yeah, I mean, there are all marketing leaders have to rely on lots of people and or agencies. You have to, like, that. When you look at the list of requirements in a big job, it's exhausting and exhaustive, right? I mean, it's everything. You have to do everything, or at least be accountable for everything. I think I would put my hand up and say that I need people around me who can focus and be analytical. I lean storytelling, right? I lean creative, narrative, communication, visual. So I know that, there is, like, if I need someone to analyze, like, if I have a huge bank of data in front of me, my brain is not very good at getting into it. I love it. I love the context, but I need someone to churn it up and spit it out. And I think it's fine to admit that, it's fine over time to push the doors open that feel natural to you, because you can hire people to come and help you out. Yeah. And if you can't find it internally, you go to an agency. Like I've always said, I think there's a lot of brand agency relationships that are there, but people don't know why they're there anymore. And I believe you work with an agency if you either don't know how to do something or you don't have time to do something, or both. Usually both. And you just figure out where the gaps are. The weakness, I mean, just kind of like the nitty gritty. I would say, having been in liquor for such a long time, I missed a big wave of D2C digital for obvious reasons. Well, perhaps not obvious to all listeners, but the 3-tier system in the US doesn't allow you to sell direct to consumer. So you're going through distributor, you're a little bit further away from first-party data, although that is changing. So I've been playing catch up there, and there's just incredible resources out there, fingertips to learn from for free, like marketing, Twitter. Of course, you can get distracted, and there's quite a lot of BS out there as well. So, but just as long as you got your filter on.
That's right.
Yeah, but playing catch up on quite a bit. I don't know. I could go on.
No, that's good. It's so powerful when we can be self-aware, right?
Right. Yeah, that helps.
That's the killer. Yeah. You mentioned agencies. One topic so we do surveys to see what people want to talk about, and what the biggest challenges or topics are that come up for marketing leaders. And one of them is, how do I construct or facilitate the perfect marriage, right? What in your experience has been the things that have worked well for you in establishing strong agency client relationships, and what are some things that have caused a lot of pain and headache for you, and how did those come to be?
I mean, it's such a good question. It's very similar to the trust triangle that we've just been talking about. Like, a great agency relationship is one that doesn't feel like client agency. It feels like partner. So I think that begins with, doing all the diligence beforehand to make sure that not just it's a fit in terms of your needs, but it's a fit in terms of culture, people. You're just working with people at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from, as a client, writing really good briefs that come from strategic foundations rather than on a whim. You have to hold yourself and the agency accountable to the brief, not make the work subjective if we're talking about creative.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is always about trust and openness. And, I think that honesty is very, very important. Now, look, within reason, like it is possible to be too honest sometimes. And by that, I mean, sometimes you need to apply a little bit of a filter on what you're saying,
right,
and manage things. But in general, like I would always lean like brutally honest, and I'd rather do a cleanup after that than not be honest, right? You got to be honest with your people. You got to be honest with your agency. If they're not delivering, have a conversation. Just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. Don't email. Pick up the phone, and just be like, look, I'm feeling like something's off. Perhaps interrogate yourself and say, is it something that you've missed? Because it could well be on your side. Usually is. And then just talk about it. And communication is everything. I mean, it's such a cliche, but just effective communication. And I think understanding of language and using the same terms is a huge issue within organizations when it comes to marketing.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that.
So we've done some work internally on language, because everyone comes from a different world, right? You hire somebody from Coke and they'll have their language. And typically when you're looking at sales and marketing and that gray area in between the two, that's when things can get a little confusing. And that's when sales and marketing can sort of start to be suspicious of each other and kind of eventually point fingers, right? And so when things go badly, like whose fault is it? It's always the other team's fault. So I do believe that, if you remove ego and from the equation, right? If you just can leave your ego at the door, and if you can have a common language and you have the same understanding of what trade spend means, you have the same understanding of what shopper marketing means, and everyone's on the same page, things will be a lot easier. And there won't be fingers pointed or so-and-so didn't do this and that. So it's sort of, I think it's sort of an overlooked area of just internal.
I think that's brilliant. It's I very rarely hear that. I mean, if you think about culture, culture is oftentimes defined, sometimes geographic, but culture is defined in a large part by the shared language or vocabulary that you use. And if you're trying to create partnership, not client agency relationships, then a shared language is a you're right, it is overlooked a lot, but what a lever.
Yeah. Right. I mean, my mom is a professional linguist, and she's kind of drilled that into me. That's something I have is, focus on, good writing, good language, common understanding, because there's a lot of cross-cultural misunderstandings that just come from a different understanding a word differently, and it can lead to,
it's wild. Well, we have a very large contingent of our team is based in Latin America, about half of the organization, and two different languages, obviously, but it's given us a opportunity to create a shared language, like which is
cool.
What you're drawing on there. That's very interesting.
So how do you question? How do you?
That's not how this works, Tom.
Come on.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
As the head of the agency, how do you facilitate, that cross-cultural kind of, or at least how do you mitigate against a lack of misunderstanding?
Well, it is hard. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We were trained in one language, so to speak. But I think where we've had a lot of success is understanding individuals and their top 5 strengths. We adopt the Clifton strengths. And so when people are saying things, whether it be in English or Spanish, we're training ourselves as a team to listen to those words through the lens of their top 5 strengths, which is has created universality for us.
That's so great.
And it's just kind of one of those things for any organization, if you look back on, or what are the biggest things that we did accidentally or intentionally that put us in the driver's seat of our ambitions and dreams, right?
Love that. I mean, shout out to my boss, Charlie. He I'd never heard the expression, but he uses it a lot, and he just says, assume good intent.
Exactly.
And I'm kind of a cynical person, and sometimes I'll not assume that, but having that top of mind has been transformative for me, right? Because if you're starting to misunderstand somebody, if you can remind yourself to assume good intent.
Where's the heart?
That is, it's a huge thing, and dealing with people who come from just a different environment to you and different place, I think everyone's here to win, right? We're all trying to make this work. So totally. It's a great.
I think I'm going to change the name of the podcast to "Things You Learn When You Become a Dad," or "Things You Learn when you get gray hairs."
Yeah, you might lose half your following immediately, but gain some new ones. But
So your team had a lot of talk about team. Tell me a little bit about how they're constructed, and that first. Tell me about the team, how they're constructed, whether it be internal or external or a combination of both.
So we're small, and the marketing team is the largest team that we have. And it's funny because, startups, the needs change from week to week, right? So the first thing I'll say is, we do have, everyone has a job title, but people's jobs change. And, there's a guy, if he's listening, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. There's a guy who we just call him the Swiss Army knife, because he's a problem solver. We originally, he came in as an intern, and then, he's a curious guy, brilliant, he's smart, but he didn't have any experience really. And he's now developing trade marketing capability, field marketing. And one week he'll have to jump into insights, right? So I think he actually, we called him the junior insights manager, Jim. So now he's just Jimmy. And it's crazy. But I think the reason for mentioning it is that, yes, you've got to hire. I mean, you've got to have a social media manager, and ideally maybe even 2, because there's social media and community, right? And if you're running your own influencer activity, that's a heavy lift. You really got to have that. And we have an incredible person called Nicole, who also wears the poop suit. So she doubles up as the poop and does a fantastic job. So she's really an actor as well.
Spins the sign on the corner.
Oh, she does it all. But you've got to hire people who are malleable and agile, right? Agility is kind of a hot word in the HR world. There's people agility, mental agility, but you've got to have people who have high levels of EQ and can adapt if needed, and can just understand, as long as they know where you're going and what you're trying to achieve, what the objectives are. If you have people who can bend and lean in and problem solve, that is the number one skill for startups. And of course, we're building capability as we go, but I would take the team that I have 100 times out of 100 over, 3 brand managers who each have 10 years of experience in a big company, because nothing wrong with what they've done, but that they might be too rigid and not able to just go about the rhythms of startup. And we just have a fantastic in-house creative, social, and ops that just get it all done. And there's no this is not my job anywhere. If someone's there, they can solve it, and it works, and it's fun. But you got to have the right culture to do that.
Totally. Well, yeah, you've created a place of safety for people. You get their best out of them, and it's kind of that motley crew identity and culture and language. Right?
Yeah, right. I wouldn't ask a non-designer to do.
Yeah. No, of course.
Design.
You should try it out. See how agile they are.
Right. See agile. Yeah, and I've tried to do it and have failed spectacularly, and at creating some artworks. It's amazing what a designer can see.
Right.
Like really extraordinary. I mean, it's been a real eye opener of like spacing something out by like 5% more.
It's crazy.
The difference that makes. It's awesome. Yeah.
What you can answer this one through the lens of maybe it's a categorical response or industry response, or maybe it's something within the team or function. But what is one of, it doesn't have to be the biggest, but what are one of the biggest challenges that you and your team are faced with today that you think about on a regular basis that you're still trying to crack the code on? So you haven't cracked the code on it, but you're working on it together.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, there's one challenge, which is to, we would love to have more money to spend.
Oh yeah.
About that, competing with big CPG, you can do it on creative, but you can't do it on muscle.
Yeah.
And there's things we would love to do this year that we just can't. Like we have you can imagine the number of ideas we have and we just can't execute on.
Yeah.
But that's an obvious one. I think another one is, I guess a challenge is keeping people highly motivated and like revving high when the budget is not set. And by that, I mean, like, I don't know of any brand in history that has set an annual budget and phased it out and delivered it on per them. It just doesn't happen. I mean, of course you have to do the planning, but in our case, we're going through a fundraise at the moment. Shout out anyone who wants to invest in the brand.
Wipes.
This is the opportunity. But it's hard. You have to do a lot of kind of analysis and scenario planning on budget to be able to react if and when a big check lands, right? So there's quite a lot of ambiguity to work through, which I think is hard as a leader, because you have your team sometimes asking you not what to do, but they're like, how many of these events can we do? And I don't have an answer to them for right now.
Right.
So there's the challenge of kind of managing, like, without clarity, things can get a little, I think people can get demotivated.
Yeah.
Just kind of keeping people motivated and eyes on the prize when things don't go to plan. I think that's one of the biggest challenges.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's not awesome in the essence of
it's an awesome challenge, right?
No, totally. It's like, come follow me into the fog.
That's it. And like, foosball and tacos ain't gonna do it. Like, that helps, but it's
what? Why is everyone hating on foosball? Whenever talk about that analogy, it's like what actually adds culture. It's always fucking foosball.
It's always foosball.
Foosball's the best. Ping
Foosball's
pong,
great. We don't actually have one, but that's true. It does. Foosball does get a hard time.
Yeah, followed maybe slightly behind ping pong, but whatever.
Snacks. I mean, snacks. I think that's underrated as a
or like beer taps. Yeah,
beer tap. if you got great snacks in the office, I don't know. I think that's
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
like
I'm
even
done.
like a
I'm
breakfast replacement would be key. Like,
Mm,
nobody's having breakfast anyways.
yeah.
But you know what? I do have another question, but before I do that, this popped up on my Sports Center app. Very simple question for you: City or United?
You mean or Arsenal? You mean?
Well, I was gonna throw them in on
Well,
the
because they're
off
playing
chance.
today.
Okay, that's true.
Oh, you're talking about the FA Cup final.
Well, and United popped up because that's my team and I follow them. It was just it was team news, and so I thought, City or United, but you can throw whoever you want in there.
For non-football fans here, the context is Manchester City are playing Manchester United in the FA Cup final, the Cup,
Yes.
and they were playing Arsenal today, in fact, in a
Yes.
few hours, to effectively decide the outcome of the
Right.
Premier League, EPL, as you call it.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to say City, unfortunately, because they're just this Death Star juggernaut, state-funded.
Yeah, it's the easy answer. That's all right. Go ahead.
They're going to win everything. So yeah, but I am an Arsenal fan. I'm a Londoner. Arsenal.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
I had to get that out of the way. I'm a United guy. It's not a great time to be a United fan, but
No, tough. I think
it's also a good time to be a United fan because it's like, from the ashes, we will rise.
There you go. Yeah, it can only go up from here.
Anyways, disagreements, conflicts, tricky times with this great team that you have that's always, how do you navigate those? What role do you play, and what have you learned along the way as your blueprint for navigating this?
I mean, what's really clear is whether you're in a big company or a small company, there's going to be quirks that you have to deal with. Now, no company's perfect. The benefits of a small company obviously are agility and the ability to get things done. But then you have the effect of one single person can be huge because it's such a disproportionate effect of a small group. One of the things, and the guys won't hate me for saying this, but founders are very close to the brand and close to the business, right? And sometimes too close because you've seen it, you've stared at it for 10 years. And one of the challenges I have, I wouldn't say it's conflict, but it's to try and pull the consumer into the room and try and maintain an external perspective on work, particularly when it comes to messaging and packaging and things like that. Because, realistically, consumers don't care about your brand as much as your head of marketing or your co-founders do. They will never care. There are a couple of crazies out there that we love who do, but not many.
And they get free wipes anyways, I imagine.
And we load them up anyways. Exactly. So it's just about trying to delicately bring the consumer into the conversation. And, some companies even literally put a cardboard cutout of a consumer and put them in a room to remind.
So are you saying, just to stop you, are you saying bring the consumer in as sort of hey, you can think your thing, we can think our thing, but let's let the cardboard cutout be the subjective
essentially
trump card.
Let's let people tell us, now obviously that doesn't mean that you sit in a focus group and ask consumers what your strategy should be. I think there's a difference, but just trying to maintain that impartiality and to, I think I heard someone very smart say recently, what did they say? I've forgotten now, but no, it was something to the tune of, if you can accept that people don't care, right? They don't care. And
as much as you care
is the start point.
Right.
That's a really healthy place to be. And it's difficult, right? It's difficult if you've put your life's work into something. So, there's always an adjustment there if you come in, and there has been, but the guys are fantastic and they're just fantastic listeners. And we're building something now that I think is going to be, Seth Godin's purple cow. Like, this is going to be memorable. What is the stat? Like 84% of advertising is ignored.
Yeah.
So it's worth remembering that to start with, right? The people don't really care. So why don't you do something that entertains and stands out, noticed? And that's the whole distinctiveness versus differentiation conversation, which is an Ehrenberg Bass, and I subscribe to all of that, right? I subscribe to being very, very consistent with a set of distinctive assets over time, and you will be top of mind. Obviously, you need to combine it with duration and spend, but
Yeah.
your start point has to be distinctiveness. And that can look very different for a consumer who's never even engaged with the category. Does to someone who's built the company. So
that's right.
Yeah.
What if it's interesting you went the first thing when we were talking about conflict or disagreements, you referenced leadership and founders and in an appropriate way, of course. But what if Nicole is fighting with Jim?
They're best of friends. One of the best things is that Jimmy and Nicole have just become, they are opposite. They're both Gen Z, but they're complete opposites. And they have just become this fantastic little team.
Okay.
They're like a brother and sister. They're like a brother and sister. They like shit on each other. I mean, it's brilliant. But like generally, like I would like them to resolve it themselves. There has never been a point where I have to step in and do conflict resolution. That hasn't been a thing I've had to do in this company. We keep an eye on it, but the same thing, you don't want to be this helicopter parent. Everyone's a grown up and everyone has the skills. We've hired these people and retained these people because they have the skills to problem solve a task or a conflict. And it just kind of happens. I mean, not every day is perfect, and some days people are in a bad mood, or some people haven't taken their meds. It's like there's all sorts of shit going on. But we just I would say at least twice a week we have a meeting where we are howling with laughter. At whether it's Maria, our incredible creative director, whether she's designed this like gift box for Mother's Day, which I mean, like at that point, I don't need to get involved in the creative. Like if we're all laughing at it and it's appropriate, and it has passed the kind of problematic, is this going to be a PR nightmare? Just go for it. Like we would go to print the next day on something.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
So it's, that's kind of what things are like. So follow us on a TikTok to get an idea of what.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with this, Tom. What are you most excited about when you close your eyes about this team or this brand or where you're going? What's the thing that's, vaulting you out of bed in the morning as it relates to Goodwipes?
It is definitely just the continued fun that we have, and the development of the people. Like storytelling, team build. That's what I do. That's what motivates me and energizes me. And it's just, I think the next few years, we're going to scale this brand. We're going to delight millions more consumers. We're going to free them up from worries. We're going to help people feel good every day, and I think do some pretty memorable brand work. So I'm just excited. We're growing the team.
That's awesome.
And it's a fun ride to be on. So yeah, no complaints.
Well, you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I can't even, when are you going to start sending product up north here? Like I have experienced the brand once while I was in the States, but I can't order it up here. So I'll be
well, there's many ways for you to get it, but I'll make sure. Do you guys have an office or are you remote?
Yeah, we have mailboxes up here too in Canada. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah, no, we got an office up here, but I think that's part of my point there is like what does expansion look like beyond the States in the next little while?
It's come. I mean, realistically, there's so much
market there to focus on first
in the US. We don't need to build out a global operation at this point, but yeah, I mean, it's not for now, but it's for the future. Crossing the border we won't be that far away. So that's
we'll get some up to me, and I'll start.
I will.
I'll run a little grassroots campaign amongst family and friends here.
Love that. Get the word out there for us. Thank you,
Tom. I wish I was as popular as Joe Rogan. We could talk for like 3 hours, but it's fantastic, man, and great getting to know you. And thanks so much for sharing your experience and your perspective on this stuff.
Thank you for having me on. And for the record, I'd rather be on this podcast than
or whoever you're. Yeah, exactly.
No, I appreciate you and for giving me the chance. It's been great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Everyone, in the show notes, all the ad handles. If you want to make a donation in the form of a large series investment, we'll put that in there as well.
Yeah, love that. Thank you.
Great brand, great leader, and thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Caleb. Take care.